Comes to the realization that I didn't finish the Consumer Leasing Act, Reg M, in the Reference Guide to Regulatory Compliance, paper page 43 in the old text. I left off at television or radio advertisements, disclosures, that is, required disclosures for triggering terms, when triggering terms are used. So ads that state a triggering term do not have to state all of the required additional disclosures. If they state that the transaction is a lease, state the total amount due at lease signing or delivery, and provide the number, amounts, due dates, or period of payments, and the total of payments. And if they list a toll-free number, along with the reference that the number can be used to obtain other information, the telephone number must be available for at least 10 days after the broadcast, or B, direct the consumer to a written advertisement in a general circulation publication within the community serviced by the media station, and including the name and date of publication. The written ad must be published beginning at least 3 days before and ending at least 10 days after the broadcast. 4, required disclosures in advertisements must be clear and conspicuous. 5, except for the statement of a public payment, periodic payment, any affirmative or negative reference to amounts due at lease signing or delivery, such as the amount of any capitalized cost reduction, cannot be more prominent than the disclosure of the total amount due at lease signing. 6, if a percentage rate is used in an advertisement, it cannot be more prominent than any other disclosure except for the warning regarding the limitation of the rate as a measurement of cost. 7, in a catalog or multi-page advertisement or in an electronic advertisement, a table or schedule of the required disclosures will be considered a single advertisement if, when lease terms appear without all the required disclosures, the advertisement refers to the page on which the table or schedule appears. 8, for an advertisement accessed in electronic form, these disclosures may be provided to the consumer in electronic form in the advertisement without regard to the consumer consent or other provisions of the e-Sign Act. And record retention must, Part C, the financial institution must keep all records, evidence of compliance for 2 years after the date of the required disclosures or a required action. Enforcement, Subpart 3. Civil liabilities include actual damages, court costs, attorney's fees, statutory damages, which range from $100 to $1,000, and for class actions, $500,000 or 1% of the creditor's net worth, whichever is less. There are FERA penalties up to $7,500 per day for violations of laws and regulations, $37,500 per day if violations or unsafe or unsound practices are engaged in recklessly or part of a pattern of misconduct that causes more than a minimal loss to the bank or any pecuniary gain to the parties involved. Third, penalties up to $1.375 million per day against persons who knowingly commit a violation and knowingly or recklessly cause a substantial loss to the bank. And letter C under enforcement is criminal liability, and there's fines up to $5,000 and imprisonment for up to 1 year. And since there's so many different requirements under Reg M for disclosures, thinking I'm going to read the lease disclosure here. There's quite a few attachments to this regulation. So there's a lease disclosure and a photograph of what that tends to look like, and the non-segregated lease disclosures. And I'm guessing the next page is what that looks like. So perhaps I'll just explain what this lease disclosure looks like. It's got the date, the lessor, and the lessee. at the top. Then there's 4 boxes. First box being the amount due at lease signing or delivery, which is itemized below. 2 is the monthly payment box. First monthly payment due on what day, followed by payments of something due on the something of each month. On the something of each month, the total of your monthly payments is blank. Other charges is in box 3, not part of your monthly payment, and 4 is your total of payments, the amount you will have paid at the end of the lease as a dollar amount. You will owe an additional amount if the actual value of the vehicle is less than the residual value, is what's written there in parentheses. Makes sense based on what I was reading before. The next box is itemization of amount due at lease signing or delivery, which was promised in the first box. And it shows a breakdown of the amount due at lease signing or delivery, which includes capitalized cost reduction line, first monthly payment line, refundable security deposit line, title fees line, registration fees line, and a total. In the other column, it's titled how the amount due at lease signing or delivery will be paid, and the breakdown includes the net trade-in allowance, rebates, and non-cash credits, and the amount to be paid in cash with a total there. And the next box down is your monthly payment is determined as shown below, and this runs a total on the right side. On the left side, there's some bold descriptions and then some non-bold text as explanation for each of these terms. I'm just going to read the terms. Gross capitalized cost reduction, adjusted capitalized cost, residual value, depreciation, and any amortized amounts, rent charge, total of base monthly payments, lease payments, base monthly payments, and monthly sales and use tax. So that comes to a total. Rent and other charges is the box below that, with a total on the right side as well. The total amount of rent and other charges imposed in connection with your lease, which I suppose could be a total of, let's just say, the 5th and 6th box. Then there's a box with specific, with just some language about an early termination. You may have to pay a substantial charge if you end this lease early. The charge may be up to several $1,000s. The actual charge will depend on when the lease is terminated. The earlier you end the lease, the greater the charge is likely to be. And then lastly, I'm just going to read the bold and not the unbold description, is your excessive wear and use clause, the purchase option at the end of the lease term clause, and other important terms. Those, I suppose, must be segregated from general disclosure requirements, whereas the non-segregated lease disclosures are on page 48, and I'm going to just read through this. It's the following provisions are the non-segregated disclosure required under Reg M, and that's a description of the lease property, year, make, model, body style, and VIN number, your official fees and taxes. In paren, you'd say, well, in bold, unbold, the total amount you'll pay for official and license fees, registration, title, and taxes over the term of your lease, whether included in your monthly payment or assessed otherwise. Insurance in bold, the following types and amounts of insurance will be acquired in connection with this lease, and there's a blank line. a box for we or you. We, the lessor, will provide the insurance coverage quoted above for a total premium cost of blank if that box is selected, and you, lessee, agree to provide insurance coverage in the amount and types indicated above on the line. That's blank at this time. Followed by the end of term liability in bold, described as A, the residual value, in parentheses, a dollar value must be entered, of the vehicle is based on a reasonable good faith estimate of the value of the vehicle at the end of the lease term. If the actual value of the vehicle at that time is greater than the residual value, you will have no further liability under this lease except for other charges already incurred, and are entitled to a credit or refund of any surplus if that applies. And if the actual value of the vehicle is less than the residual amount, residual value, you will be liable for any difference up to blank, which is 3 times the monthly payment. In parentheses it says perhaps instructions to the lessor. For any difference in excess of that amount, you will be liable only if 1, 2, and 3 occur. 1, excessive use or damage as described in paragraph blank, representing more than normal wear and use, resulted in an unusually low value at the end of the term. 2, the matter is not otherwise resolved and we win a lawsuit against you seeking a higher payment. And 3, you voluntarily agree with us after the end of the lease term to make a higher payment. Should we bring a lawsuit against you, we must prove that our original estimate of the value of the leased property at the end of the lease term was reasonable and was made in good faith. For example, we might prove that the actual value was less than the original estimated value, although the original estimate was reasonable because of an unanticipated decline in value. For that type of vehicle, we must also pay your attorney's fees. And letter B, if you disagree with the value we assign to the vehicle, you may obtain at your own expense from an independent third party agreeable to both of us a professional appraisal of the value of the leased vehicle, which could be realized at sale. The appraised value shall then be used as the actual value. Number 5, standards for wear and use. The following standards are applicable for determining unreasonable or excess wear or use of the leased vehicle. And there's a blank line there. 6, maintenance. You are responsible for the following maintenance and servicing of the leased vehicle. We are responsible for the following maintenance and servicing of the leased vehicle. There's a line there. It actually can be omitted, I think. Warranties. The leased vehicle is subject to the following express warranties. Blank line. 8, early termination and default in bold A. You may terminate this lease before the end of the lease term under the following conditions. And a blank line. The charge for such early termination is blank line. And letter B, we may terminate this lease before the end of the lease term under the following conditions, blank line. Upon such termination, we shall be entitled to the following charges for blank line. And letter C, to the extent these charges take into account the value of the vehicle at termination. If you disagree with the value we assign to the vehicle, you may obtain at your own expense from an independent third party agreeable to both of us a professional appraisal of the value in the leased vehicle, which could be realized at sale. The appraised value shall then be used as the actual value. Security interest. We reserve a security interest of the following type in the property listed below to secure performance of your obligations under this lease. And there's a blank line. And late payments, a charge for a late payment is blank. And option to purchase, it doesn't even tell you when that gets assessed, but oh well. Option to purchase lease property prior to the end of the lease is the last clause here. You have an option to purchase the lease vehicle prior to the end of the term. The price will be blank. The method of determining the price can be provided as well, and you do not have an option to purchase the lease vehicle. Can be used alternatively. I'm gonna call it quits because that's the end of Reg M.